Here's my challenge to you. Stage one, get it out of your head. You've got to say it. If you don't say it, they do not know it. Welcome to another episode of Living Life in Tune. I'm Adam Lee. This is the show where we keep things in tune in our life. I'm a musician, and there's nothing worse than picking up a guitar and it being out of tune. Or if you're trying to listen to music and the instrument is out of tune, it doesn't produce a pleasing sound. And that's what this show is all about, picking up the things in our life that matter, like love, leadership, personal growth, manhood, and keeping those things, those important things in tune so they produce value and they produce pleasing sounds for people and for life. And that's what this is all about. This is episode 21, and we're going to talk about communication today. Communication. I was reading through the book of Matthew with some friends at church, and one of the things that stuck out to me about Jesus and his disciples was he had a lot to communicate to them in a short amount of time. If you think about it in the context of his time on earth, he started his earthly ministry, and then in 3 years, he died on the cross. You think about from the time he started teaching to the time he died on the cross, the amount of material that he had to cover and communicate and transfer to his disciples is really astonishing. The red letters of Jesus in the Bible number over 30,000. So he had to get a lot of information transferred to a lot of people in a short amount of time. There's really no greater teacher or master at communication than Jesus. He was able to do this, and one of the things I noticed in the book of Matthew, reading it this time around, is what to me jumped right out, and I'm going to go over the 5 stages of communication. And I want you to think about in your life right now the things that you need to communicate and the people that you need to communicate them to. We have information, we have vision as leaders, we have direction, we have preferences, we have opinions, we have values, we have things that need to be communicated, we have desires and outcomes that we hope happen, and we have to be able to communicate. And this doesn't just go for leadership, this is parenting. Think about it. Parenting is you're trying to transfer right from wrong to your kids. You're trying to transfer, good values, good decision making. You're trying to communicate a whole lot to your kids, and really a short amount of time as well before they grow up. And so the challenge of communication is real. The necessity to be able to communicate is real. And we have to learn as communicators to get that information transferred to the place where the people around us get it. They get it. And so here's the 5 stages really quick. I'll name them, and then we'll dissect them and break them down one by one. So the 5 stages that jumped out to me was stage 1, they don't know it. In every stage of communication, they don't know it. Stage 2, they don't get it. You said it. They didn't get it. Stage 3, they forgot it. Stage 4, they abandoned it. And then stage 5, the best one, they got it. So you think about something like parenting and all of the information that you have to get across to your kids. There is going to be naturally these 5 stages of communication. You're going to say it. They're not going to understand it. They're going to forget it, abandon it, and then finally, maybe one day, hopefully, the prayer is from the good Lord above that they would get it. And this is true for teams that we lead. This is true for parenting. This is true for marriage. Communication goes through these stages. Communication is not a one and done. Okay, it's not just some speech that you can give once and then dip out and pray that people get it. No, communication is a consistent, day in, day out, say it again, say it again, say it again, and then hopefully one day they get it. And so like Jesus and his disciples, you see him saying things to them over and over and over in 3 years. And then finally we see at the end, his disciples get it. And so we have a lot to learn from that. Let's dive into stage 1 of communication. They don't know it. It's time to teach them. Okay, so you have things that you need to communicate and people in mind that you need to communicate to. All of us have the need to communicate. Stage 1 is they don't know it yet. So it's time to teach them. Got to put on a teacher hat and say things that they've never heard before for the first time. So here's a reality. People do not know what we do not say. And so we can't expect people to be mind readers. People rely on what we say to know what we mean. So it starts by saying it. We have to say it. Jesus had a lot to transfer in 3 years. I said at the beginning, if you read the red letters of the Bible, there are over 30,000 words that he had to communicate to the people around him in just a short amount of time. And so here's my challenge to you. Stage 1, get it out of your head. You've got to say it. If you don't say it, they do not know it. And people do not read minds. So the very first stage is it's time to teach them. It's time to put on teacher hat. And there's a famous saying that's actions speak louder than words. Well, I'm not 100% sure if I buy that, okay? I do believe that our actions can reinforce our words. I think our actions either underline or undermine our words, but I don't think actions alone speak louder than words. Here's why I say that. Because people just will not inherently pick up what we are throwing down if we do not say what we need to say to them. We can hope and pray that they pick up what we're doing and try to lead by example. As parents, we just hope that our kids catch on. We hope that they learn what we're doing and notice over the years. Well, here's the honest truth. If we don't say it, they will never learn it. And so stage 1 is they don't know it and they cannot learn. The Bible says that faith comes by hearing the word of God. And how will they have heard if no one tells them? Okay, so stage 1, they don't know it, so it's time to put on the teacher hat. Jesus spent a lot of time talking and verbalizing the kingdom of heaven to his followers. And so as parents, as leaders, we need to spend an ample amount of time verbalizing what needs to happen, the direction we're going, the standards that we're going to use to get there, the values and the unity. We need to be able to communicate that and say it out loud. Stage 1, they don't know it. So moving on to stage 2, after we've began to say it, we see this happen. Stage 2, they didn't get it. Oh man, it's time to say it a different way. You said it, they didn't understand it, and you have to say it in a different way. And so leaders have to find a way to say things in a way that people understand it. I've heard it said that it's not what you say, it's what they hear. And the truth of the matter is, if they hear something different than what you're actually trying to communicate, it's time to back up, realize you're in stage 2. Okay, my kids are just not getting this right now. My wife's not understanding me right now. My team, there's a misunderstanding here. And so I've got to say it a different way. The chances of people understanding what you say the first time you say it are exactly 0%. We rely on saying things once and in one way, and the chances of people getting that are just exactly 0%. And I think stage 2 is what separates the mature from the immature. Okay, anybody can say anything once. But if you're going to reiterate something in a way that somebody else can understand it, man, you've got to lay aside some things. You've got to set aside some pride. You've got to be humble. You've got to set aside maybe some preferences, or you've got to set aside whatever it takes to be able to say it in a way that they can understand it. And it takes maturity and humility to even realize, man, I could have said that better. And it's having some grace for yourself. I'm not a perfect communicator. I don't say things the right way every time. Sometimes there's emotions involved. Wouldn't you know it? Sometimes there's fear. Sometimes there's anger. Sometimes there's a little bit of, resentment because you rubbed me the wrong way. We've got to be able to lay all of that aside. Realize, you know what? I could have said that in a better way. And I'm just going to keep trying. I'm going to restate it. I'm going to keep trying until you understand what I'm trying to say. And it does take maturity and humility. People rely on what we say to know what we mean. So if they do not understand what you meant by what you said, it is time to say it in a different way. Takes patience, takes grace, but we have to have the humility to own it. We don't communicate perfectly, and just to keep pressing forward through stage 2 until the light bulb will go off. And through humility and grace, they can understand what we are trying to say. It's what all communicators have to cross that bridge, and all leaders have to cross that bridge. And you cross that bridge into stage 3, okay? They forgot it. Okay, so you taught them something they didn't know. You went through the hard work of saying it in a way they could understand, and they did understand it, but then they forgot it. And it's time to remind them. The challenge of communication is people just forget. I forget. If you said it to me before and I understood it, I'll forget it. I'm not perfect. The people that you're leading are not perfect. Your kids are not perfect. They're going to forget the things that you teach them, the things that they understand. And Jesus was a professional at reminding his disciples. He would say over and over again, have you not heard it said? Oh, you foolish generations. He is reminding them and have you heard it said? It was stated in the prophets that this, he was reminding. And if we're honest, listen, we forget things too. So as communicators, we got to just have grace and go, you know what? I'm human. I know what it's like to forget things you forgot, and we're just going to remind you. That's it. No hard feelings. And if you think restating something is annoying, wait till you've got to remind. Okay? If you think it's annoying to say things in a different way so that they don't understand it, wait till you have to constantly remind people. It really does take a level of maturity to keep through these stages. And I got to tell you, at the end, it's worth it. The final stage of them getting it is worth trudging through these stages. But listen, the honest truth is people forget what they already know. We're all guilty of it. We all need reminded. If we all could just remember everything that we've ever learned, we would be better people. And the truth about it is, if I could remember God's love for me, if I could remember his grace for me more, listen, you guys know what I'm trying to say. We forget things. Stage 3 is they forgot it. It's time to remind them. And this is why reminders are one of the most common tools that are built into all of your apps on your phone. Remind you to do this. The calendar, remind you to do that. You've got a 2:00. You've got to do this by this time. Reminders are like one of the most essential parts of our lives. And so why wouldn't we think that is crucial in communicating? It's crucial in getting the point across to the people that matter the most to you, for you to have to repeat and remind on a regular basis. That is stage 3. Stage 4 is, they abandoned it. So they heard it, they understood it, they were reminded of it, and then they chose to abandon it. And it's time to forgive them and give them another chance. This really, stage 4, is brutal. It's one of the hardest stages of any communication. And that's the stage that they abandon it. And this is the last part of leadership and communication. People will eventually mess up. No one is perfect. Listen, we all know what we know, and we know the right thing to do, and we know like what we should do, but then sometimes we just don't do it. We abandon what we know we should do, and we just do what we want to do. And so stage 4 is a real human condition, and sin plays into it, and we just abandon what we know, and people will eventually mess up. And you will enter into a stage where it's not reminding them anymore. They understand it. They just abandon it. And it's time as a leader to just forgive them, to lift them up, to just be humble and say, you know what? I know what this is like. I'm a human too. I've abandoned right for wrong. And we all are human. And it's time for me to forgive you and give you another chance, because this is just a stage. Jesus' disciples would abandon his teachings. Peter would deny him. Judas would betray him. All of his disciples would scatter when he died on the cross. And they just abandoned him. And so stage 4 is about the human tendency to rebel, even when we know what's right. Anybody familiar with the teenage years? When you know what's right. And if you're parenting teenagers right now, you've done a great deal of communicating to teach them, to help them understand, to remind them. And as a parent, you have to walk through them kind of forsaking what you've taught. And our teenage years do this. It's a stage, and this is a stage that we repeat as adults too. So stage 4 is about forgiving people and giving them another chance, man. God has given us so many chances, and he does not give up on us. There are things that the Holy Spirit is trying to transfer to you and me on a daily basis. God is consistently trying to communicate things to us through his word. And if he gave up on us every time we abandon his teaching, man, we wouldn't learn anything from him. He wouldn't ever be able to communicate anything to us. So this is a really important stage. It takes grace. It takes mercy. You've got to be able to forgive people, and you got to play the high ground, and you've got to invite them back into the picture. Jesus would do this masterfully. He would meet Peter and the disciples on the beach one morning for breakfast. You guys know the story, after he resurrected, and he would say to Peter, listen, I love you. I forgive you. Will you come back and do the things that I have taught you to do, that I've been trying to communicate? And Peter jumped on board. The disciples went forward, and they entered into stage 5, the glory stage of every communicator hopes that people get here is stage 5. They got it. They got it. It just clicked. Man, it's like they had to go through the merry-go-round of learning it, but they got it. And making it to stage 5 takes work, consistency. You got to have a no-quitness about you. For Jesus, it took him 3 years to get there with 12 guys. And it took forgiveness. It took leadership. It took Jesus re-engaging Peter after he messed up. As leaders, as parents, we've got to re-engage our kids after they go through this stage. These stages, of forgetting it, of abandoning it, of not understanding. We've got to make it through. We've got to re-engage them again and again. And we see Jesus, he did this. And in the final stage, they got it. You see the disciples take the gospel message far and wide, and Jesus is ascended into heaven, and they got it. Man, I am praying for you today that you would sharpen the skill of your communication, and that you would see these 5 stages as just a regular part of communicating and of leading. I know that there are things that you need to say, and that there are people that you need to say them to. I pray you make it through these stages. There are things that you need to transfer to your kids. There are things that you need to transfer to your spouse. And guess what? All communication goes through these stages with all of your relationships. So, teaching your kids right from wrong, it goes through these stages. Communicating your needs and what you want to do with your family to your spouse, it goes through all of these stages. Leading your team at work, it goes through all of these stages. Here they are one more time. They don't know it. They don't get it. They forgot it. They abandoned it. And then they got it. I pray you can push through, have the tenacity and the steadfastness that it takes to push through all these stages, get your point across, get your information transferred, be a leader, be like Jesus, and communicate to the world around you the things that need to be communicated. Praying for you this time around with this gift of communication. And remember this, your life matters, so keep it in tune.